Welcome to the Paper Chasers Book Club. I am Kenny, your host, and today I have the prestigious Odile Sasso.
Great grandma.
Great grandma. I have the loving mom, the adventurous Ariana. How's everyone doing today? I'm going to start with Nani. Nani, how are you today?
Oh, I'll be fine, thank you.
We fine, okay.
I'll be fine.
I'll take that. Mom, how are you?
I'll introduce you, the greatest son God could ever bless me with. I'm doing amazing because I'm surrounded by the people I love the most in the world, missing a couple of
Don't
them.
ask your mother anything about you guys.
I asked her about her, and she talked about me.
But when you ask about me, it's always about you because that's what my life.
Wait till she starts on the other one now.
I'm honored to be here, feeling very blessed, healthy, happy, and ready to dive in. I've been very excited to discuss this with Nani and both of you because this is a multi-generational book club and this is awesome. So I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, Nani, maybe you want to help Nani put the headphones. Yeah, there you go. Like,
So close.
have her put the bar on top of
Okay.
it.
No, I'm fine.
No, Nani, the bar goes on top of the head, honey.
Oh, wait, you're messing up my hair.
I'm doing good today. Happy I woke up and get another shot at this thing. Ari, how are you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
I wanted to start our book review by introducing the author. I found out she actually lived the life she wrote about. Delia Owens grew up roaming barefoot in the South Georgia woods and spent then her 20 years studying lions and elephants in Africa, where she was one of two people on an area the size of Ireland, completely by herself, remote, isolated.
Who is she with?
She was by herself in her 20s to 40s.
By yourself means she was out with
Well, no, because you said one of two people. So I didn't know if it was
probably
like
another
family
researcher
member.
yet. She was by herself.
Nani likes to clown me. I don't know what I did wrong.
So she realized studying nature how isolation can impact someone. And that is the basis for this whole book. This book found me at a good time because I'm in Texas. I recently moved on my own for the first time. And I started to feel a little isolated. When I first knew we were going to read an imaginary book, I thought it was going to be a hard read, but it was really good. One, because it related, but also the author weaves in this scientific perspective the whole time about how nature and humanity are related.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd say after reading, it makes me want to go to Africa even more. Did this book find you at a good time?
It was a fabulous book. I could not put it down. And like I said, at that time, I was still receiving the Sun-Times, and it was the new books. And I said, I want to see Where the Crawdads sing. Crawdad is a mud crawfish.
You
That's
knew
what
what that
it
was.
is. But then I figured it'd be in the South, Louisiana or Alabama or Georgia. Here is all the way on the South Carolina by the ocean. So I didn't know that they had that many swamps there, to be honest with you. But It was an excellent book.
I wanted to start this book club because I wanted a way to connect with Nani on something more than just like the news. And I was like, all right, well, I wanted to have an intellectual conversation with Nani. I asked Nani, all right, Nani, I'll let you choose the first book. What book are we going to do? When she said, Where the Crawdads Sing, I also gave her a look and I laughed. And I quickly realized when I then Googled it, that it was recently a movie too on Netflix. So it seemed like it was actually really
The
popular.
book was that good that they made a movie out of it. It was a bestseller right away. And I didn't know they had, actually, you know what a crawdad is? You know the mud things that you'd see in the South? There's little mud chimneys that are in the backyards and such. That's a crawdad.
Oh, do you mean like holes in mud?
No, it's as though they chew it, they make little balls or something, and then because Louisiana, it's marsh all over. You don't have to go very far to find water, even where I lived.
So it's important to point out that you grew up in Louisiana.
Yeah, but in the mid-Louisiana, I didn't grow up in the south or the north. I grew
In
west
Arnaville.
of Baton Rouge is where I live.
In Arnaville.
Yeah. But like I said, they make little chimneys. You go out in the mud, especially when it's rain and the water. You'll see those little bitty mud chimneys in the yards.
So you've seen crawdads before.
I ate them. You did too, probably.
Is a crawdad the same thing as crawfish?
Yeah, a crawdad is a crawfish.
It is.
Yeah, it is a crawfish.
Did you know that, Ari?
But there's
I wasn't-
some
I
of
didn't
them
know
that are
that either.
mud. Those we don't eat. You eat the ones that everybody back,
Interesting.
a lot of people back home have ponds and they grow their crawfish there. But I
Okay.
did go, Anthony and I did go crawfishing last time we went to Louisiana. I had never gone. And so Patrick took Anthony and I, and then this big thing there. I mean, it was and it was on the shore, right? And Patrick says, "Get it, get it." And this, I said, "I get it, I'm gonna touch that thing." They are so fast, they move backwards with their tail.
Oh,
And he
I
says,
didn't know
"Catch
that.
it." And that thing had big pinchers. I said, "I'm not gonna touch that."
so you didn't catch it?
Did Anthony catch
No,
one?
it went back in the water. We fished after that, but that particular one, we had it on shore. But they want to go back in the water and they go back. They flip their tail somehow or other, and first thing, they're gone. They're back in the water.
I did not know that.
Back home, people have the ponds where they grow. They have the crawfish. They're seasonal and so forth. They raise their own. Sometimes some of them have fish, but usually it's crawfish because and they're big. They're little medium lobsters or something. It tastes about the same thing as a lobster.
Okay, about the same.
So did Anthony ever catch one?
Oh, sure.
That's
Well,
so
yeah, because
cool.
he was with me in Louisiana and Patrick took it. And then it's on that levee. You way up there, and then you go way down there into where the swampy areas are. And I said, "Patrick, you're going to drive down there? We have to stay in the car." I walked back up. I would not get in the car. I'm looking at this at the levee, and the path is the trail. No, not a trail. It's a path. Where everybody goes up and down the same place. But I said, "Oh, you want me to get in the car, and you're going to go up there on an angle?" I walked up.
you walked.
That's scary.
I walked up. They laughed at me. They couldn't believe it, but I did. And then we had to go down again after that because you know what a levee is. They are high. That's to prevent floods and all that stuff. But that's no water retention and all.
Yes.
And then on one side you have people own the land, and it's all posted that you get caught fishing in there without permission, you a heavy fine or jail. You can
Jail
go to
time.
jail for that. This is
Wow.
what people live on. This is their living. But it's quite different up there. Quite different.
What a great experience.
And Nani, when did you move from Louisiana to Chicago?
Well, I was 20 years old. I've been 19 actually.
19. So a couple
Yeah,
years ago.
61 years
Yeah.
ago.
Oh yeah, I've been here a long.
71 years ago.
I don't know Louisiana
70 years
anymore.
ago.
I really don't. If I go on a map, then I can see, but otherwise I don't know where they were at. We got lost, Poppy and we were going home. We got lost. Oh, first thing I know, I said, "Pete, I have no idea." And it's at night. I have
Well-
no idea. All I could see was that there's this highway on either side. There's water and there's trees and that stuff. I said, "Babe, I have no idea." Finally, we got someplace where we saw a little grocery store was still open.
Oh, okay.
And also, my mom died. That's right. And anyhow, and they told us how to get out of there. We were way up north. Instead of going this way, we went that way.
Oh.
But like I said, you don't want to get lost in Louisiana at night. You don't know. There's highways, and that's it. And there's no people.
That's
There's
scary.
nothing there.
I don't even know what I would do. Yeah, imagine getting lost without your phone today. That's the thing. I've had that happen once, and I did the same exact thing Nani did. I just stopped at a gas station and asked for directions, and they're like, "Oh, follow this street on this street." And that's the issue. Is I don't know streets. So I'll go north or west, or I don't have a compass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at night when you get lost.
There's probably no light anywhere.
Instead of being
No
coming
street
here,
lights.
we
Were there
were
lights
way
7
over
years ago?
there.
Probably not.
That
They
we
probably
have
had
to-
no street lights.
Of course not. You're out in the country. There's no lights.
Ooh, that's scary. I remember just coming home from Champaign when you were in school still, and there's like a big stretch where there are no street lights, and even though it's highway, it's still scary.
That's right. Yeah,
It's-
Champaign, Illinois. That's in the countryside, 3 hours out. So yeah, we did get a little taste of that. It is true. It's like, all right, we get stuck here, we're in the middle of nowhere.
Thank God those people were still opened up at night. And like I said, so we got down. And of course, when they found out we were from Illinois, they were more than happy to tell us, you go so many miles this way that you're going to come to. And they told us how to get out of there. But we had traveled way out of our way. Because even my dad says, what happened? And I told him where we wound up. He says, what were you doing all the way up there?
Just I'm curious, do you remember what car you were driving when all that happened? What car you
Buick.
had?
I was going to say that.
We
Okay.
always had Buicks.
The red Regal?
Always had I didn't know that
The
was in
red one, the Regal, or no? I remember you
It
had a
was a
silver
special,
one.
a special, I think, at that time.
Le
the
Sabre.
limited
You had
edition.
a Le Sabre, a silver Le
Well, it
Sabre.
became a Le Sabre. The special became a Le Sabre, yeah.
I remember.
I want to return to my question of where this book is finding you in life. I know I asked Nani, she told us how she found it. I want to go to Ari because I mentioned that part of the reason I did this book club is connecting with Nani, but I had that idea, that seed, but you're the one that kind of lightning bolted or kickstarted my energy to actually do it and give me the excitement. You called me and was like, oh, by the way, I'm reading 3 or 4 books. Which surprised me because you went from, it seemed like you just went from like 0 to 100.
I hadn't read a book since like 8th grade.
And then you started going nuts. So let me ask you, are you still reading multiple books today?
Reading, Ari?
Yeah, I paused reading those 3 books to do the
Oh, I'm
Crawdad
so
book
happy
with
to
you
hear
guys.
that.
So I haven't finished those.
Okay.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. That's enjoyable. And you do get,
You learn. Yeah, you better yourself.
oh, because I love to read. I used to read bad books. My father would found out True Confessions and
That sounds
Those-
scandalous. True confession. What are we
my
confessing here?
Ruth and I would hide in the hayloft
This is
to read.
PG, Nani, PG.
We'd go in the barn in the hayloft and we'd hide our books there so my father couldn't find. So no, my mother knew it, but he never turned us
Explains
in.
a lot.
We used to hide up there to read.
That's
In a barn, you said.
There was no libraries when I was young. There was no libraries. back
library, the
home.
new barn.
Yeah, that's fair. No
They
iPhone.
had them, but in the larger cities, not in the small town. Okay, as we were saying.
Yeah, so I'm just so Ari. So what made you want to start reading all those books? When we start reading again?
I saw an ad for a Kindle and I didn't even have a book in mind I wanted to read, but I was like, this looks so nice. And I needed something to do. I'm always on the road and me and Matthew travel a lot. So like on the planes, on vacation, on the beach, I just wanted something to do rather than scroll on my phone because I'm not the type of person to sit on my phone. So I was just looking for a new hobby, really.
Okay.
What was the first book that you did download to your Kindle?
Psychology of Money. And I'm still reading that right now.
No way. Did I recommend you that one?
Yeah, and to answer your question a little bit more, this book, the Crawdad book, was a bit refreshing because what I'm reading right now is a lot about like bettering for my future and mental health. And this was just, I didn't relate to this book very much, and that was refreshing to have a different perspective of something else, not so serious.
Okay, so you didn't relate to it in the fact that like it's a whole new perspective, like a life you've never lived, or you didn't relate into it like you just didn't find it interesting?
Like the main character, I didn't relate to her life necessarily. It was nice to get a different perspective of somebody else's problems and just, yeah, like a fiction book. It was nice.
Okay. Mom, what about you? Where did this book find you? I know I tagged you in, gave you this idea, but reading the book, I don't think you've read a book in a while. I think, and by the way, I'm in the same boat. This was the first book that I've read front to back to back like this. I think I did one last year, but
Your mother doesn't have time to read.
so how did you find the time to read, Mom? How did you find the book? Tell me a little bit about, your experience doing that.
What you were saying, I don't even know the last time I read a book. Couldn't even tell you, besides opening like the Bible to read, probably reading the Bible to you guys or children's books when you guys were younger, or trying to take different pieces from Catholic religion books. That's probably all I've read in the last 15, 20 years.
15, 20 years.
Literally, I have not sat down to read a book since then. Nani was the one who, when she read this book, because Nani reads 2 to 3 books a week at minimum.
I just returned her books, and it was like 3 bags of
Yeah,
books.
you need like 2 hands to pick
Did
it
you
up.
read all those books, by the way, Nani? Side note, the one you read all those
No,
books?
not all of them.
Okay.
Some of them are not my authors.
Right.
So
Okay.
She's
There
very
it was
loyal.
like
I have authors that I
heavy duty. There was paperweight in those
Yeah.
books. Yeah.
Yeah, I found it a very easy read. It was very enjoyable. I think it actually exceeded my expectations.
My.
because I'm always running and pulled in so many places and in different directions. To just focus on myself alone, that's not something I do very often. So I actually enjoyed delving into that. And I found myself not only looking forward to reading the book each night, but I even brought it on the plane to go to Texas. And I finished it even sooner than I thought I was going to.
Okay.
So the last night, I was like, okay, I'll just read 20 to 30 pages a night. And I couldn't put it down either. When it was coming towards the end, I probably read the last 80 pages in one night and stayed up. My eyes were like bloodshot. They were burning. I was tired, but I couldn't put it down.
It does get crazy at the end, and we'll jump into that a little bit. But I do find it interesting that you found that reading time as personal time that it seems like was refreshing and you haven't had in a while.
Yes.
So I like the place that reading has had. So I want to jump into the book. I want to give a quick summary of the book, and then we'll jump into it, and I'll start us with the question. So in general, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. It's about a young woman named Kaya who's left to raise by herself in the marsh of North Carolina, and her family abandons her at a young age. So the story takes place in the 1960s, and what's interesting about this book is it's split into two timelines. So it opens with sheriffs investigating the death of the small town famous quarterback named Chase Andrews.
With loose morals.
With loose morals. Let's not overlook that. That is
scandalous.
That isn't. And so immediately Kaya becomes the prime suspect. And the other timeline of the book is starting with Kaya as a kid, as a child. And you find out that Kaya's the prime suspect because the two became romantically involved when Kaya's first true love, Tate, left for college. I thought that the marsh would be a meaningful place to start that can serve as a canvas upon which we can discuss other things. What was interesting is that Nani knew what a marsh was. She looks like she actually grew up not in the marsh, but you knew what the marsh was.
Yeah, of course, they're all over. I've never been actually in a marsh, but I know they're all, because there's none from where I lived, but they're further south and maybe southeast and the west, but towards where Liz and them live, New Orleans, there.
The marsh wasn't too far, so I didn't know what a marsh was before reading the book.
4 hours away, at least, from where I lived.
Okay. The marsh was 4 hours, so Nani knew 4 hours away to the marsh.
Yeah, but my father and them used to go fishing in those marshes. They used to go hunt. See, they had a hunt club in the marshes. They had just so many people that belonged to this club. You could not go, you didn't dare go in there and start hunting. They had their legal right to shoot you. If you went in there and started with the deer season and all of that, it actually happened that some people who were killed, they were Vietnamese or one of those foreign countries. They actually went in the people a blind is where the people go to hunt for the deer and all the deer season. I think they were Vietnamese or someplace out in the Asian country. They actually went in somebody's blind. You don't do that, man. They shot them. They wouldn't come down, so they shot them, and they were legal to do that.
Wow.
So you said that was your grandfather who was in the hunt club?
Yeah, but not in that particular one. I've been going for so long. I'm not sure exactly when deer season starts. Poppy went deer hunting. My dad took him hunting after we were married, and he shot a deer. Only thing is he shot a female, and you don't kill female deer. No, he saw it.
He got the kill.
He wounded it. One of Poppy's friends went and finished it, but legally, he could claim that deer. But because it was Poppy's son-in-law, he gave it to him.
So he had some street cred.
And so there's an initiation ritual when your first deer. They take the stomach, empty it out. Most of the times they rinse it. They did for Poppy, and then they put it on. They put blood from the deer on your face, and then they put the stomach over your head.
Do you have a picture of that?
For Poppy, that was my father's son-in-law from up north, so they were very lenient with him, like that. So he says.
So Poppy put the stomach over his head.
I don't Poppy and one of the other guys did. I don't know if they did that. I know they put some of the blood on his face, and that's all. But usually, it's much worse for people back home.
Yeah.
But it was
Wow.
Poppy, it was Pete's son-in-law, so he got away with just a little bit of blood on his face. But he got the heart. You bring the first deer, you get the heart. And he would bring it to your wife. I said, what do you want me to do with that?
He brought you a
Oh, yeah.
deer.
He gave you his
Oh,
heart.
yeah. This is what they do for the first deer that you kill. And
Oh,
like I said,
interesting.
it's a big club.
What did you do with it? Did you guys cook it, boil it? You just throw it
I
out?
gave it to my mother.
What'd your
Who knows
mother
what
do
to
with it?
do? I don't know what to do with it.
What'd your mom do with it? Cook it?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Oh,
I do not remember. But I know my dad took my husband deer hunting with him. So that was nice. He liked Pete.
everyone loved Poppy. Poppy is the best.
There is a part in the book that stood out to me where Kaya is fishing with her dad, and she's fishing and she gets the fish and they're gonna kill it, but she like looks in its eyes and she doesn't like it. She has a hard time killing it. I know recently, I know Ari, you weren't there, but when Mom and Hannah came to Texas, we went to the rodeo, and I remember Hannah was like, she gasped when they were like,
So
yeah, when they were lassoing the bull because they pulled it from both ends and it stretched out the bull, and that was the most gruesome thing we saw in the rodeo. But
Everyone was like,
yeah, to me, that everything else felt okay. That felt like a little bit further in terms of inhumane. But I thought it was interesting that Kaya, there was another point too where she's cooking food and she's, I think I'm going to cook mussels because mussels don't have eyes to look at me when I'm cooking it versus the fish. And so it's just interesting because she's super in tune with nature, but she has this empathy for the food that she's eating. I raised that to pose the question, do you feel that at all today? Like, Nani, do you think that the hunting was, like, would you still hunt today? Do you think there's anything wrong with hunting? With killing animals
yeah,
like
'cause
that?
it was food to eat. It was not hunting just to have a trophy on the wall. It was yeah, food.
So
Definitely.
for survival.
I don't think I could have done anything to get to shoot a deer with those little Bambi eyes. Oh, you can't. How can they have those cute little eyes, little Bambi eyes? It's unbelievable. Like I said, but no.
Okay, it was food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mom, what about you? Even today, eating burgers, anything like that, do you ever think about
Where it comes from.
where it comes from?
I love meat. I am a carnivore. And I don't think that it affects me in a way that I would ever not eat meat because it is for survival. Now, I know you can live off plants and vegetables, and I love that as well. But being raised eating meat,
Sure.
it's something that I don't have a guilt for. I believe that it is for the
That's why
purpose of
God
eating.
created them was for human consumption and to use, to tame, and to utilize. Otherwise, what was the sense of animals?
So-
Horses. The people, farmers have horses. People, all different kinds of activities. But this is why God gave them to us, not just to look at. No, it's to utilize them.
I think there's something there. So I saw Ari raise an eyebrow and Nani said the purpose of them is to serve us as humans. Ari, I want to hear your perspective. Do you share the same view? Do you see it any differently?
I don't see it that way. I've actually looked into alternatives to like meat protein because now that I work out a lot, I have to eat a lot of protein and I do think about it a lot. If I could be a vegetarian, I would, but that is so hard. And I've looked into plant protein. It's just not the same. You don't see the same results. Like you feel weaker not eating meat. So I feel like it's there for a reason. We are supposed to eat meat. But like the thought of it makes me sick. I wish there was an alternative, but I feel like it has to be done.
I don't care that much for meat myself, Ari. I used to love it. But now, like I said, I'd just as soon have a meatless meal.
I see food more as a tool than like a
Yeah.
indulging. Like I eat the protein because I'm trying to get strong.
I love that. I love that line that you put in terms of a tool versus indulgence. I feel the same way. Until we find a better way, maybe it's lab-grown meats. Those are on the peripheral. I don't know if they're going to be promising or not, but if we find a better way, I'm all here for it. I don't necessarily want to kill an animal. I do think there's something there that
Yeah, but this is why they were put on earth. It was for for people to have food, for food. Fish, same thing. Like back home, they had, I used to call them chalks, I think. It's a black bird. And there's a season for birds. And I remember my mom cooking birds, cleaning them, but in season. You don't kill them otherwise in the summer or spring. I think it's a fall thing. I'm not sure. I don't remember because we didn't have that many of them, only once in a great while.
The bird. So you would shoot the birds?
Yeah, yeah. The man would go hunting,
What kind of?
but with little pellets.
Yeah.
That you didn't shoot them with a bullet or nothing. That was not very often, but I know my brothers used to go.
Your brother. How many brothers did you have?
4.
4 brothers. And so now I'm just curious, how did you prepare? How did you eat the bird? Was it in soup? Was it with rice, grits? What do you?
Oh, honey, rice. Everybody back on the South eats rice with everything. I'm surprised they don't eat it with for breakfast. They probably find some way to do it. But
Throw an egg in there.
they will cook like a stew, like you would meat.
Stew.
There's not very much meat. There's only the breast because, like I said,
Yeah.
the little skinny legs. There's nothing on there. It's just the breast.
Did you enjoy it? Did you like it?
I must have. I must have been very little when we did because I remember. Even in high school, we didn't eat birds anymore.
So going back to the marsh, and I know we took a big left turn, but I did not know what the marsh was. Mom, did you know what a marsh was?
Yes.
You knew. Ari, did you know what a marsh was?
I'm not even sure if I know like the perfect definition or a picture of it. I'm picturing a swamp.
That's my idea.
And so what's interesting is that this book is actually split up into 2 sections. Part 1 is called The Marsh. Part 2 is called The Swamp. So they distinguish. And so the very first sentence of the book is, the very first words is, marsh is not swamp.
No,
Marsh is a space of light where grass grows in water and water flows into the sky. Slow-moving creeks wander, carrying the orb of the sun with them to the sea, and long-legged birds lift with unexpected grace, as thought not built to fly against the roar of 1,000 snow geese. And so 2 things I want to point out here. First, that first sentence is very representative of the book and how descriptive they get. Like the orb of the sun, to me, I could just see that reflecting off the water, the subtle.
it was a marsh, not a swamp.
It was a marsh, not a swamp. And
There were swamps around there, further north. There are swamps.
there were, and they do
Yeah,
mention that a little
yeah.
bit. So then that's what's interesting to me is, see, I didn't see the movie before reading this book, and I didn't know what a marsh was either. So I didn't really know what to expect. And just an interesting reflection I had is I first started reading this on the Kindle, and then I decided to switch to paperback about 25% of the way through. And this whole time when you read a book, you imagine the storyline. You have in your head like what you would picture it would look like. And one thing that I noticed is that when I did get the book, there's this super bright, like orange, like very strong, saturated hues. And it totally changed how I pictured the marsh after this. The only reflection I remember is I remember being a lot more like black and white and dull, and maybe the sun's not out. But here, the sun's strong. Look at that orange sky. And so, Nani, I know you.
I've never been that far south. Now, Ruth has, but I never was. Because they used to go, my mom and dad and them used to go, their vacation place was past New Orleans, quite a bit past New Orleans is where they used to go. It's out in the Gulf where they used to, because they used to go crabbing just before sunset. The crab would come towards the shore, and they'd all go crabbing, and then they would eat crabs until,
How fun.
But I never got to go.
Oh.
When I was home, the one time I told Dad, I said, "Let's go." I said, "I'll pay for it." He says, "Mom can't take the trip no more." And my mother she had her swimsuit on and already on the bed. She laid it out when she heard me talking about it. And he says, "She's too ill." He said, because it was like 5-6 hours away from where I lived. This is where we had to be traveling.
How did you travel that? You
In
had
a
a car.
car.
Okay. I didn't know.
The Model T? No, I don't know.
I didn't know if it was horse
My
drawn
father
carriage.
did have a Model T when I was a little girl. My mom used to drive. Women didn't drive in those days. There is one. They had the covers that you could put down, but it was open. And my mom used to drive. She was one of the very few women that drove. It was unheard
Pioneer.
of. And they knocked my sister out of the car. Well, you didn't go very, it would,
You could fall out of the car.
oh no, she didn't fall, they threw her out.
Oh, they threw it
Oh,
out of
well.
the car.
Why did they throw her out?
It's all open, huh? You've seen the old cars?
No, but why?
Why? What was the
They
reason?
were goofing all around. What do you think? And there was Felix, Peter, and Dan. Hubert wasn't there because my sister, she had the 4 kids because my mom used to drive. She'd go visit her parents. She'd go visit, but women didn't drive in those days. My mother did
So why did your mom drive? Why did she get to, but most other women didn't?
because she wanted to, and my father taught her how. She wanted to, and he taught her how.
I see. Yeah, shout out to your father for not being on his high horse or anything back in the day. If it's
Yeah, that was so long ago.
Yeah.
You know how long ago that was? My God, I was born in 32. That was at the beginning of the 19th century. That's a long time ago.
Donnie, so you drove in the Model T before,
Not me, my mom.
but you were in it. You were in the. Oh,
My father had a Ford. No, it was not a Model T, though. I know he had one of those black boxy cars that there was no, in the wintertime, they had to drain the water because it would freeze, and there was no antifreeze. So you had, and then in the morning, you had to put water back in the radiator. But I was little, so by the time I grew up, that was all gone.
okay. So by the time you were growing up and stuff like that,
I was over
you
here.
were always in cars. Did you ever ride in like a horseback carriage?
No.
Okay.
But wait a second. You said Poppy used to take a horse-drawn carriage with his family to church every Sunday.
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
knew
Poppy's family was in the
Yeah,
horseback
and
carriage.
my mother's family
Okay.
also.
I knew we'd get around to
Oh
it.
yeah, there.
Okay.
Like I said myself. No,
Yeah.
I remember it was my brothers on the car. There was a thing and you'd pick up that hood, and there was some kind of a gadget there. And if my oldest brother was seeing this girl, that Charlie's mom and them actually. Anyhow, what they did, there was a thing you could turn off the gas. So anyhow, there was enough in there to get him just so far down the street, and the car stopped.
They were always jokesters.
Brothers, what are you going to do?
I've always had pranksters in the DNA. It sounds
Right.
like there's
Long
this
line of
theme here.
pranksters.
Of those yeah.
That
Now
was
we know where it
probably
comes
one of
from.
those Model T Fords or something. I don't know. But,
So I'm just thinking, I have to say, so Nani moved from her family of 10 children and everything she knew at your age. Since you're 19, she moved when she met Poppy across
yeah.
the state
You
Yeah.
guys met at 19
Yeah, I was 19 when I came to live up
and
north.
moved to
with
Chicago
just Poppy?
Huh?
With just him?
Just Poppy and I.
at your age.
And why did you decide to move to Chicago with
Where
Pop?
he was from, huh?
Oh, you met him in the
Poppy
army.
was born in Chicago.
Okay, so you went back with him to go back to where his
Because I
family was.
married him, and of course I moved with my husband.
And why didn't you guys decide to stay in Louisiana, where your family's from?
I'm sorry.
Why didn't you and Poppy decide? Why didn't you say I want
No,
to stay
he-
where my family's from?
His job was waiting for him.
Okay.
He was already established. Anyhow, we moved up north. And I remember we had gone someplace and we were walking back to the way the people walked. And it was breezy like it is today, maybe a little stronger. I couldn't breathe. I was losing my breath because I wasn't accustomed to breathing this kind of in the wind.
And you didn't have a North Face on.
No, not at that time. And like I said, I told him, said, Pete, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And so there was a store. So we went into the store till I gathered it was okay. Then we finished walking home. But
Walk.
until I got accustomed to it, because Illinois it's a breezy city.
Right.
Yes, it
So-
is.
How far was the walk from the store to your home?
Oh, there's a store right downstairs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
the
I
corner
live in
store.
the city.
Okay.
I have
But,
a quick question. Does anyone know the real reason they call Chicago the Windy City?
It's windy.
No,
That's what most people think. It's
no,
because
I know
it's so
why. Because
windy.
you and I were when we run on my.
Chicago. No, okay, that's a clue.
That's a clue. Well, I
Yeah.
thought.
Is
I
that a
remember-
I
good?
think
Mom, when you and I were on that tour at Northwestern, on the boat, they said it over the thing. They said it's because the politics are
because the
swifty.
politicians
Nothing
are
to do
full
with
of
politics.
air. It's the windy city, they're full of air,
Yeah.
but it is very breezy. So
Yeah.
just a little trivia for you.
Interesting.
Nani, one more quick question. How did you get from Louisiana to Chicago? Did you guys have a car that you drove?
Well, of course, we had a Buick.
The Buick.
We always had Buicks.
Okay, you went to the Buick. Yeah, I can only imagine a road trip without GPS.
See, your grandfather was
A map.
close to 20, 26, 20.
Nani still has maps.
He was 26,
Everywhere you
27
go,
years old when we got married. So, like I said, he was no kid, and he had a job.
And did you have the map and you tell him, Pete, turn left at the dirt trail?
But
How
you
did you even
Take a
know?
left at the tree.
Right.
I mean, I'm
at
sure
the
there's
tree with the
signs
big-
probably to
I
Chicago.
don't remember the route exactly, but I know we'd go up to Arkansas, a bit of Arkansas, St. Louis, and then a long drive because Chicago, Illinois, you know where you were at for college. That's a 4, 5,
Mhm.
6 hour drive.
But you used the map. Did you like read the map and instruct Poppy where to go?
Really, he knew it.
He knew. Okay.
Yeah, see, because
knew.
like I said, he drove his car when he was in the army.
Okay.
He had the Buick, and Uncle George and Uncle Sam were ruining his car. They were not taking care of it. It was dirty.
So it'd be
They were-
like Hannah and
so-
Haley using your car.
So he was able
Literally
to
that,
take his
yeah.
car to Camp Polk, and that's how I got to meet him.
Okay.
Because he had a car, and they were all coming to Opelousas because there was it's a nice, nice town. And like I said, this is where a lot of the GIs came there. Some went to Lake Charles. They went out all over the place from Camp Polk. It was a fort. Now, I don't know if they closed it or not, but there was North and South Polk. And the South, it was mostly the tank division. Where Poppy was at was just the other one, regular GIs, but the other ones were the people in the tanks.
What was the event that you went to where you met Poppy? Was it like bingo night? Was it a dance? What
It was a hop, honey. She went to the hop.
That's how
Wasn't
I-
it a hop?
Sunday afternoon, there was, I had nothing to do. Went with this girl where we used to go dancing all the time. And we're sitting here, Poppy and Max were sitting like up over there. He came and asked me to dance, and that was it. That Thursday he was back in town, and that was it. Married him. I met him the 1st of April, married him the 1st of October, same year.
And 60 plus years later.
Yeah, see, that's what's hard is I'm currently single. And I don't go to dances. I don't ask, hey, do you want to take a dance? I don't know.
That's what it was. What we did. There was no bowling alley or nothing over
Right.
there.
Okay.
This is
I'll
what
just dance.
people went to the movies, or they went at least twice a week.
I'm trying to picture the scenery for this, and I can't understand. Is the hop a club, or is this like a more innocent thing, like not alcohol involved? Can you be under 21?
No,
How does that all?
the place was called the Moonlight Inn.
Oh, it
Okay,
sounds
when you
kinda-
first walked in, this is
risque.
where the bar was.
So it was a bar.
But in the front, in the back was a big place where they had a live band all the time and dancing.
live band.
Did you have to be 21?
I don't know. I just
Yeah.
no, I didn't.
There was no bouncer at the
Evidently
door,
not.
I'm thinking.
No, because I was not quite 19 when I married Poppy.
Okay.
10 days before I was 19.
So cute.
So Ari, for comparison, how did you meet Matthew
2.5 years ago, working at Taco Bell.
at work?
Yeah, like
Okay.
right through the drive-through.
And what did I tell the story? So what did he ask you?
I always have to ask them, like, do you want your receipt? And so it was just standard. I was like, do you want your receipt? And he's only if it'll come with like your number on it. And it caught me off guard at first because it's really busy at Taco Bell. And I was like, oh my God, do I want
There's
to
like
give this
people in the
away?
drive-through line.
Yeah, and we're like always super behind. And I'm like, do I run and get a pen? What do I do right now?
Did you want to get a
see him
pen?
already?
Who just has a
I
pen?
did it, but only for like a second. So I had to quickly decide, do I just want to give it a chance? And I did. I ran to the back, made everyone wait. That was in line. I got a marker, wrote it on the receipt. I wrote it wrong. I had to cross it off and do it again. And I was just like shaking.
That's so cute.
Mom, how did you meet Eddie?
I was one glorious evening when I was going out with Auntie Lisa. We were going to go dancing, and she had wanted us to go to Ruth's Chris to have a nice dinner first. And I really wasn't into having a nice dinner. I just wanted to go out and have fun and dance. And she said, no, you have to go. And so we went. She knew him from going to go eat there beforehand. So we just walked in, and he was walking towards the door. We were walking in the door, and she introduced us there.
And he was working, so he got your number on the clock. He was working.
He was an assistant GM back then, and he ended up sitting down with us and feeding us green apple martinis, which was, I think that's what determined my fate that night. And we started talking that day, and we're pretty much inseparable. Although that night, he had asked me, the next day was Super Bowl, and so he invited me to come back downtown because he lived downtown in a high rise at that time. And he was like, I really want you to come and meet all my friends, and we're going to, right across from Ruth's Chris, I think Sullivan's, it was Sullivan's, we're going to eat and have whatever. And I'm like, no, it's the day before my son starts school, so we have a very special day planned. We go to church, and we go see my nanny and have pasta. We have a very special day planned, so I didn't meet him. I turned him down
The
for
boundary.
that because obviously you were coming first. And that was my priority, is making sure we spend that quality
So I
time.
started school that? What was I
You were
starting?
going to start school on Monday.
What grade? Kindergarten?
I think either kindergarten or first. I think first
No,
grade.
he was,
First grade, right? You were right before your
I
sixth
think it was
birthday.
kindergarten, Val.
I think it was kindergarten too.
Yeah, he was in kindergarten.
It was kindergarten because then when we moved to Lombard, that's when you were in first grades at Christ the King. So yeah, so you were at St. John Vianney, getting
Okay.
ready to start school. And we lived here in North Lake, which is where we're filming this, North Lake Library. So things come full circle.
Yeah, that is a good point. We didn't say where we're recording this. So we're currently in North Lake. So Nani's house. And Nani, how long have you lived in that house for?
In Melrose Park.
How long have you lived in Melrose Park for?
How long we lived there?
Yeah, when did you move in?
1967? I don't remember. I know
Late
that it's the
60s.
same year my mom died, and I can't remember when that was either.
Okay, so late
Over
60s.
50 years, 55
So we're
years.
recording this in 2023. So that's, 50, 60 years. I can just say I flew in from Houston last night. I walk into Nani's house, and when you start paying attention to the details, you can tell that the house has been established since the late 1960s, whatever it is, because there's older. Because there's just these knickknacks or dolls or statues that I'm looking at Nani's bowling trophies from the 80s, or it's like this fun house or this museum that's it's a time capsule. I walked into a time capsule yesterday, and I just noticed so many things I've never noticed before. So we were gonna record this conversation originally at the house, but there was a lot going on. We decided to get a meeting room, but we're only 10 minutes down the street at North Lake Library. And from here, I can literally see the school I went to preschool in and the church that I was baptized in.
And made your confirmation.
And Ariana was baptized.
Ari was
here
baptized
also.
there. Your dad and I were married
Yeah, I
there.
can see out the window, where we were baptized, where we went to preschool. On the way here, Nani and I are driving, and she's like, you and I used to drive down the street all the time, and I saw the first house that we moved into.
38 Bernice.
38 Bernice, so we passed this, so we really are,
And it
where...
hasn't changed. It is the same.
No, it's a little bit different. From when I saw it, they painted it.
Yeah, I thought they painted it. It
They
was
did
a little
paint
different color.
They didn't do nothing else to it.
I
The
don't- I
people on
remember.
that side and that side, they all went, oh, they stayed there.
That house, maybe go
But
back
they
and
cut
buy
It's a
it.
classic. I
They
love the
cut the
house.
tree down that was in the backyard.
Okay.
That weeping willow, that was a nasty tree.
Love
That's mom's
that's
favorite.
my favorite tree.
Did you like the weeping willow?
Yeah,
My
but
favorite
honey,
tree.
What was that one a good one?
And
Is
the-
that-
I don't remember there
The
being a weeping
sticky-
willow in the back.
the
I think
sap-
the people next door had a weeping willow. I don't
Okay.
think it wasn't us. We didn't have a tree in our yard.
Oh, yes, you did.
I don't remember. You have a great
So-
memory, Nani.
yeah,
I don't
I
remember.
believe-
Poppy and I used to pick up Booby after school a lot.
Go to your
Remember
car.
the little store we always stopped at to buy you a toy?
I do.
Time I picked him up, we stopped there and get him a toy. Or we'd go and get a hot dog on Grand Avenue. Remember they had the delicious fries there, right across the street from where Uncle Sammy used to live.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I do remember.
I don't think I don't think they have that there anymore, do they? Right next to White Castle.
No,
You're
that's all gone.
It was a hot dog place right next
That's
to White
all
Castle
gone.
on Manheim
Indiana
and Grand.
hot dogs, maybe. Or...
Yeah, right next to Manheim and Grand, White Castle.
I know, it's all gone.
Good times. So
Yeah.
we're gonna jump back into the book a little bit. So
I think we digested from that
we
book
did.
a
We
long
took a
time
huge.
ago.
It's like when you got lost on the road trip and we're going back. In the beginning of the book, right away, Kaya's family leaves her. The mom leaves first. And then at some point, the dad's gone for a while. And so there's a point where it's just Kaya and her older brother and sister. So Caius is the youngest sibling. And there's a period where the family's gone. And so you find out her older siblings end up leaving very quickly too. She's left very quickly in the book. She's by herself. But in the time where her siblings are still there and the parents are gone, there's a moment where the older sister is cooking dinner. And it's for the first time where, because the parents aren't there, they cook the dinner and everyone just takes it to their room and eats. And I just thought it was interesting that without the mom there, they didn't have the tradition of all sitting down at the family table. Now, when I think about us growing up at Nani's, we'd always eat at Nani's kitchen table. Us growing up, I feel like we've generally had a pretty good habit of eating dinner together. And my question is, I'll start with Ari. Ari, 10 years down the line, 15 years, however long you have a family, are you going to make it a point to have a tradition to eat at the family table? Or are you going to use eating as a tool? That's not really how we connect.
I've definitely grown up on like connecting with people over food. I feel like that's the best way for me to connect, whether I'm cooking or just eating the meal. That's the best way. But I also don't know if I'm going to have a family myself. I haven't even thought about that, quite honestly. I currently don't want kids, so I'm not too concerned on
Right,
that
this is
aspect.
15 years down the line, so I know it's there. But
Harry, if you feel that you could not take care of them and give them love, don't have any. Because you were brought up with nothing but love. Oh, my God. Poppy, oh, another little Valerie. That's all. He treated you like another little Valerie.
Yeah, I feel like if I did have a family, I 100% we'd be just like our family is now. I'd be cooking dinner every single night. I love to cook. The kids would sit at the table. We'd all eat together. That's like the only time you truly have to sit and just talk with each other, because you can't be on your phone. You're eating. You have to just conversate with the people you're with. That's a very important thing to me.
I love that.
I love
Makes
that
me
too.
happy.
Even now, I'm rarely home, like all this and that. I'm always working. The only time I get to be home, and like me and mom, every single day we have a meal together. That's the one point when I come home and give mom my full attention, is when we cook and eat together.
That's true. I live for it.
You picked up the right parent.
Singular, in Nani's opinion there. You know, what is good, we are lucky in the fact that you only need one loving parent. Nani raises a really good point. I like that you said, Ari, if you don't think you can show the child the same love that you were shown, don't have it. Relating this to the book, I'm actually skipping to page 340. Our main character, Kaya, she is the prime suspect of the murder. And at the end of the book, one of the best scenes in me is the murder trial at the end of the book. Kaya gets lucky. She has a really good lawyer. And so her defense team, when she's talking to the jury, ladies and gentlemen, did we exclude Miss Clark because she was different? Or was she different because we excluded her?
I love that. One of my things I wrote down.
And that just makes me think about who we think someone is. Is it because of how we're treating
In the
them?
book, it was a male lawyer.
It was a male lawyer. And so he was talking about Kaya. He said,
okay.
he said, he's asking the jury, did we exclude her because she was different? Or is she different because we excluded her?
Yeah, but okay, before that lawyer took over, she was mute. She was not talking. She was just sitting there. She always was very quiet. She didn't speak to people to begin with. And she was, whatever they were doing, she would just keep quiet about it until this guy said, wait, he was there, but he was not her lawyer in the beginning. All of a sudden he says, enough. She did not commit this crime just because she had the red hat. They saw it in her house. And this is how they accused her, because they were going around talking to people, and they looked through the window and they saw her hat hanging in the kitchen. And they had a thread from a red hat, that same wool, on a nail where he fell.
And that's what connected her to the crime.
Yeah, that's how they connected her. And because she was so different, that was also the biggest reason I think they accused her, because she was so different. She never tried to, and she tried to run away when they were going to arrest her also. Was scared.
She didn't want to get in
She was
prison.
never- she never
She's
was
with
around
nature.
people. He tried to warn her. He did a lot. He liked her
Oh,
because he knew she was all by herself. She was-
Jumping. You're talking about
Yeah.
Jumping, the
Yeah.
gas
her
station.
dad was there once in a while. He came, okay, I'm going here. And like I said, but he'd come back, and this is how she learned how to fish and learned her way around in the marshes. She asked her father to go with him. It's a girl, but he brought her, and this is how she found her way around the marsh and so forth. If not for that, and then he left, and he never came back, and that was the end of it. And then she was all alone. But it was did you read the book, Ari?
Yeah.
Oh.
Why was there doubt?
No, I didn't know if she was just that she had heard about it.
No,
or
she did.
had
She did
actually
read it,
read it.
I read it. I feel like even more than the threads that connected her, he was missing the shell necklace, which was a huge part of it, which I can't remember exactly
That's
how
true.
they brought it up in trial.
Yeah, so remember, it found out. So Chase Andrew, the star quarterback, his mom knew that he was messing around with Kaya, the swamp girl. And she knew that he always wore the shell necklace. So
And
she
never
knew
took
that
it off.
he never took it off. But the night of the murder, that shell necklace was no longer there.
And
That
And the
was
mom
the biggest
testified.
clue for me. I loved that. She's, you weren't taking that from me. I'm taking that back.
That's so weird that he wore it that whole time. I found that weird.
Telling. But what was the original question you asked?
Skip to the end in the court where he asked, is she different because we excluded her? Did we exclude her because she's different? Only because Nani brought up how if you're going to have a kid, you need to raise them with love. You can't treat them as different. And I've just thought a lot recently. I'm having diversity discussions, and one key focus of diversity discussion, this is a hot topic for me, is what privileges do you have? And people typically in diversity discussions, when you talk about what privileges you have, the first things people think about is skin color, because that's the most popular one that's talked about. The next most popular is socioeconomic, meaning did you grow up in a rich family or a poor family? What I brought up, and something I feel strongly about, we were talking about these things, and there's this whole model of all the different privileges you can have. And I'm like, to me, my biggest privilege isn't on this model. My biggest privilege is having a loving parent and having love as a child, because there are theories that how resilient someone is growing up is due to how much, it's directly correlated to how much love they got as a child. And so when I tell people about myself, I say, I am privileged. I had that one loving parent. And so it wasn't really a question. It was more a reflection.
And a pop-pop that adored you.
And so, Mom, I see you're tearing up. What's going through your head thinking about hearing that?
Because if there's one legacy that I leave in the world, what means the most to me are my children. Like, just giving the love, the most I could ever give to you. Like, I raised you with our beautiful Catholic faith, which was a gift given to me by Nani and Poppy.
Poppy
And
mostly.
you too, Nani, because you both lived it. You didn't talk about it. You lived your Catholic faith, and you passed that down to me, and that's very strong meaning to me. I've taught all four of you throughout the years about our faith, about love and respect and kindness. One of the biggest things I've always said is we are all God's children. I don't look at anyone any differently. We're all God's children, and so we're all miracles, and that's the way I've always viewed the world around me, and I tried to pass that down to you. And to me, that all originates from love, and that love was originated because of you. And I'm so grateful because
You know what I've often wondered? Okay, you had the two sets of grandparents. Now, if Vicky's mother had raised you, do you think you'd be this type of a person?
Nani, I am the luckiest person on earth and the most blessed person because I had you and Poppy raise me so that no one could give me more love and direction and guidance in our
She was-
faith.
While he takes admission, you want to know a really interesting fact? It was teen pregnancy, not graduating high school, committing crimes, going to jail. It's like the number one factor and like the biggest similarity these kids have that are doing these things is not having two
Structure.
parents.
You're right. They were not loved at home.
And then when I look back at it and I'm like, what friends have been good to me and what friends have been getting into drugs? What friends are going to jail? Literally every single one has no parental structure. Like they either have divorced parents or one parent works. It's always like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ari, you're correct. This is why when I see a parent,
There's my makeup.
I don't know, that is so
I
indifferent
don't
to
need to dab
those their
anyone.
children. That child will not have unless you're very strong and has someone else supporting them. But you had loving parents, though. Vicky adored you.
It
She
wouldn't,
was
without
unable
Nani,
to
that
take care of
parental
you.
structure, Mom would not have turned out the way she
I
did.
am who I am because of you and
No,
Poppy.
Vicky did not have what it took.
You're the one who celebrated her 16th birthday and had a cake for her because her own mom
Yeah,
didn't.
her mother didn't have anything.
So it
nothing.
wasn't. So Nani
that's
has been
why-
like the mom and the savior for everyone. That's basically what I wanted to touch on when you said that. That means a lot to me because if I have one thing that I have learned in my life, it's to be loving. And if, all the education I have and all the experiences I've had, everything that I've tried to share and teach my children, the number one thing is love, respect, love, kindness, compassion, honesty, integrity. That is what's so important.
Yeah, I don't
Acceptance,
know that.
tolerance.
I don't know what about your kids, the way they came up. I know you tried.
I can hear you.
And the only thing that matters to me is
You
that the
tried
four.
hard, Val, but sometimes it takes some time.
My legacy is
She's going to get maudlin, I know. This is why I don't like your kids.
so the only thing that matters to me is that you love one another. And if I pass that down, then I've won. I've won.
I think you have one. She was like, oh, my brother is 10 years younger. So maybe in a couple of years we'll get closer once he matures. And I had this thought. I'm like, man, if it's not happening now, it didn't hit a certain age. Like we were always had some kind of connection. We're in this together type of thing. So I think you won, at least relative to everyone else I've talked to.
I think a lot of it comes to, besides being raised by Nani and Poppy, I'm an only child. So to me, every relationship is so important to me. I value every relationship, every person that God blesses me to put into my life for whatever reason, whether it's a positive or a negative one. I try to learn from it, put myself in their shoes, see where they're coming from, why they are the way they are, whether it's positive or negative, learn from it, grow from it, and pass it down to you guys. Every relationship's so important to me. And that's why as kids, like you guys never fought as kids, rarely. Like I hear that too. All of my friends, people that I know, whether it be acquaintances, friends from schools, any kind of gymnastics clubs, any high school, anything. The four of you are so strong in your relationships.
I've never seen any siblings closer than we are. Like,
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
every family I've been involved with, I go to their house and I'm like, oh my God, they don't talk to their kids and the kids aren't talking to each other. Like
They're not talking to each other
right?
in their own
They will
worlds.
have whole days go by where they don't communicate with each other. And I'm like, oh my God, say hi to your brother, say hi to your mom. It's so odd to me because we're all so close.
Yeah, because I see it like it makes life more fun. Like I don't know. It's like, it's just a benefit. I don't know why you would cut that off necessarily, but.
And I just love, we all bring such different aspects. It's so nice with social media because you're all the way in Houston. Every morning I start my day. I used to send to our group chat that we have, the four kids and I, with something inspirational. I love you guys. I miss you, whatever. But now every morning I take the time and I send you the weather report. And I've been doing this for 6 years? Ever since you went to college, every morning you get your own text with the weather report and a message. And then I do it for Ari and then I do it for Hannah and do it for Haley. Because I just try to put myself in everyone else's shoes. What would I wish?
And you never had that. They never were a close family.
No,
Never.
no. A lot of people.
I remember, Val, when you first got married, we were shopping for Christmas, and you had bought some real nice stuff for his grandmother. And he told you, bring it back. She's not going to want that.
I can
She's a
see
good-
like I'm giving it to her.
Probably.
And she was such a nice lady.
This is skipping more towards the middle of the book where Kaya is in this relationship with Chase, and she starts to realize that Chase, the star quarterback, is seeing other women. He promised her all these things, and she's just starting to realize all these things he promised are not coming true. She notices that she's falling in the same trap that her mom did, because they say that her mom and her dad, her pa, did the same thing where she took them out of the marsh and said, we're going to live this whole life. But he ended up getting into alcohol, and it all fell through. And she realized that she was falling into the same generational trap.
Yeah, but the mother came from a very wealthy family in New Orleans. and he took her away from
He took
there.
her away from them, and
The father-in-law gave him a job there.
That's right.
He didn't like it because it was not high enough in the echelon of the business of the made shoes. But she came from a wealthy family.
that's right. And another interesting point here is he had a job at the factory, but because he wasn't instantly put to manager, he had to start from the bottom. He didn't like the hard work. And so you find out that the pa ended up instead, he gave up and he falls into alcohol and gambling rather than putting in the hard work and living this hard life that would have got them the money. And there's an interesting quote in the book that says the pa having to drink every day and gamble was the hardest life he would have ever had to live. In his mind, he took the easier path, but really he was living the harder path because he didn't live up to that full potential. The reason I bring this up is because go back to where Kaya notices she's falling into a generational trap. I start to think about our generational traps. So almost flipping, instead of the good things, let's look at some of the, maybe the bad generational things that we want to stop. One example I heard recently from, I went to someone I look up to, this creative director called Cole Bennett. He had a show in Chicago. He started Lyrical Lemonade. And he asked the person he was with on stage, why has your family been unable to build generational wealth? That question stuck out to me. I've never thought of that question before. I met him after and said, I really appreciate that question. That's actually that's worth sitting on. Why has our family been able to build generational wealth? And so the question, Ari, I want to pose to you is, whether it's that question or just more generally, even zooming out, taking a step back, are there any generational or rather family habits that you think this is something that I'd want to improve on and maybe take us one step further and not fall in that same generational trap?
I feel like the lack of internet when you guys were young screwed you over. I feel like we have the upper leg just because we can research in a second. How do I invest in crypto? I can watch a YouTube video and go invest in crypto in the next hour. It's so much easier. We have access to information that you never could have dreamed of at my age. Back when you were young, I guess, not having a stable job or not having a great salary, like you had nothing to build off of. But like here, we have bigger opportunities to invest our money and make something from nothing. You guys had to just have something, have a good job, be a doctor. You couldn't just invest the same way that we can nowadays.
If I were to take this question and rather than looking at the generational wealth piece, but ask about, okay, maybe what are some habits that I want to break in the family? It also related to why I haven't been able to build generational wealth. I think about the role alcohol has. Even in this book, Pa becomes an alcoholic, and it stunted the family's growth in terms of reaching their full potential. And if I were to ask myself, if I want to reach my full potential, I think a relationship with alcohol, I don't think that contributes to my full potential. I think about the trade-off I have when I drink alcohol. I haven't been drinking alcohol. I think it's something I've had to trade off. It's been difficult because it's the easy thing to do. It's the easy way to connect with friends. But I do think it's holding me back. And here's the thing, my friends don't know the relationship that alcohol has had in our family. I think alcohol has a darker side to our family where it's led to some people in our families, their death. We have alcoholism in our family. When I drink, oh my God, I realize how you can be an alcoholic. I can see how this can be addicting. I feel like for me, more than anyone else I've met for the most part, I'm drawn to it a lot more. I get a lot more enjoyment out of it. So I feel like I'm prone to being an alcoholic. If they were zero alcohol, maybe we'd have more generational wealth. That could be something that's held us back. And so that's something that I have under a microscope today and something that ideally I'd like to break, but it's not an easy journey because it's so socially accepted. It's almost like a negative habit that is encouraged right now in society.
Having a couple of beers is fine, but you have to know when to stop.
When to stop.
When you get that buzz, you're already drunk. I mean, you're going to have another beer.
So how do you view alcohol?
Wine.
Let me ask you this. Do you think alcohol is a net positive or a net negative to our family or society?
Alcohol can be either one. It all depends on the individual.
How you use
not
it.
on the family. It depends on the individual. Now, Poppy, one glass of wine and he'd be giggling.
And then he'd go to bed. He would giggle for 10 minutes and go to bed. Once or twice a year. That's it.
And my father-in-law never drank. So I remember one was a Thanksgiving, a Christmas, Easter or something. A little glass like this of I think it was vodka they had given him. Sure, he downed it. And we're looking, oh my God, he drank it straight through. It's as though like a glass of water. He went out, though. Like I said, he went to sleep. But my father-in-law didn't drink. My mother-in-law didn't drink. I think when did I start drinking? I never drank. I had kids before Pete. I had Michael. I had the Blas after. He got me drunk.
What's the Blas?
I think it's postpartum depression
The
currently noted,
postpartum thing.
I believe.
The Blas.
Because I was down in the basement. I was Agnes, and we were renting. Her name was Agnes. She heard me in the basement. I kept washing and rinsing the same clothes and washing. So she came down. She heard me, and so she came down and finished it.
About the book, while he's
let's
doing
finish
that,
the book.
just the fact of buying luxury things because it makes you look like you're more well off. How unimportant that is, and how badly it can screw you over for years. Personal experience.
That's a great point. I remember I was FaceTiming you. We were on the phone the other day looking at each other, and you saw my closet, and you called me out for how many pairs of shoes I had, and I was so embarrassed. I had 15 pairs of shoes. Nani couldn't believe it. I
I don't
totally
think
got
that's an
called out.
exorbitant amount. I think that's
How
pretty.
many pairs of shoes do you have, Ari?
Around the same.
Around 15?
Yeah, the girls too.
I'm trying to think because
Yeah, but when I was growing up, you were fortunate to
I'm only
have
14,
that
yeah.
didn't have a hole in the sole.
They had one pair. They were like,
had one
you know,
pair
pair.
of shoes.
I don't really buy expensive shoes. Though. It's like $10 slides
But
at
then
Target.
everybody was this. I know some of them had nicer homes and everything else, but no one paid attention to so you have this. It wasn't that way. Everybody had more than what I had, a lot more.
But you always said that you never saw like rich or poor.
Nobody made a difference that you had this, and her father was a big rice farmer. They were well off. He had a big family. But like I said, there was no class distinction. The class might have been there, but nobody made a distinction.
In the book, Kaya has to go to the grocery store to buy food every once in a while. Do you remember the prices when you were to go to the grocery store, how much a dozen eggs were?
Oh, honey, I didn't go to the store. My mom and my dad did. I don't know. We had hens to begin with.
So they didn't go to the store to buy
We
eggs.
had
lived
hens,
in the
okay.
country, so we had. My mother had chicken. She didn't buy meat and chicken she didn't buy pork from a store. She didn't buy because in November they had la boucherie, and that is when the neighbors would come. And today they went to your house, and they butchered the pigs, cut up the meat, and made all this stuff. And you got some meat, and everybody did. Now maybe next week they went to your house and they helped there, and they all worked the farm. The neighbors all worked together, and so you had fresh meat.
Any questions you want to ask Ari?
I have one. You read the book. What was your general uptake on her whole life?
I feel like that's a big question.
It's a very serious one.
I think she made the best out of one of the most miserable situations a human being can be put in. There's nothing worse than being lonely as a human. We're made to connect. And she's been put up with nothing but loneliness and still somehow managed to find her passion and do great in her, like writing her books and just doing what she loved. She made the best of just a horrible life.
And one thing she had going for her, she was very intelligent.
Yeah.
That is what saved her, I think, is her intelligence.
And although she was so lonely, she didn't just give in to the first person who would give her attention. She was very strong, and no one
'Cause
taught
she was
her
afraid
that.
of people, actually.
Which was a good thing. It was a good defense mechanism against the people who she shouldn't have trusted.
Yeah, what's interesting is she was intelligent in her own way, which is also similar to how I feel about you, because she didn't go to school. Yeah, she was intelligent, but people laughed at her. She was like, all right, I'm not going to do this. Like the teacher's asking me questions. I should be asking you questions. And she never went to school, but she learned to read in her own way, learned the Mars, and she was a published author. One of the
Her
most.
boyfriend taught her how to read, how to write, everything. She didn't even know how to count.
And so I do love how
She picked it up.
she was intellectually
she
engaged.
had intelligence.
Yes, in her own way. It wasn't through the traditional route of school. And that does remind me a little bit of you, Ari, since you're not taking that traditional route. You find out worked out for them just as well. They find their own way.
Like, she never felt forced or did anything that she didn't want to do. She did everything she wanted to do. She lived her life the way she wanted, and I really respect that because that's exactly how I want to do it.
I was gonna say, I can. When you said you didn't relate to her at all, but I always questioned that when you said that because I do see a relation between you and her.
As we talk about it, I'm getting it more, but I didn't see that when I first read it. So I'm
very
glad you
strong,
asked
like
that.
you, very smart.
She was a very shy little girl. People would talk to her and do things about her, but yet she never retaliated. She was always her. It was always my life. I have to live it. This is what I was dealt with, and she did all her life. Except, like I said, then she this guy finally fell in love and everything. So in the end, she was a very happy young woman. She was very happy. I just didn't like the ending, though.
While we're all here, we go to the ending of the book because the ending is so exciting. When reading the book, the entire time I had no idea who murdered Chase Andrews. So let me.
Who did?
I would like Ari get as much from Ari before she leaves.
Who I think did it?
We know who did it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think she did it. Was there any question? Were you considering that she didn't do it?
I don't think she did.
No, she did. So I don't know. I think you might have missed it. So let me say how you find out. The big reveal. There is a big reveal at the end that she did it. Here's how you know she did it. At the end, what's really interesting is the last chapter. The book skips to when they're 60 or 70 years old. That was really interesting. It skips to her end life in the last chapter. And Kaya ends up passing away. And Tate is going through the old shack, their old house. And he notices one day that under the stove, I believe, there was a secret compartment, a trap door. And he opens that trap door and he pulls out a box. And in that box, he discovers two things. First off, he discovers all of these poems. And by the way, the poems throughout the book are sprinkled.
I'd like to read that chapter.
It's really good. So the poems are sprinkled throughout the book. And he finds out that Kaya was the author of all these poems. She was this famous author, but she was like a ghost author. No one knew it was her. And specifically, he pulls out and reads this one poem, and here's the big reveal. The poem's called The Firefly. Here's how the poem reads. Luring him was easy, as flashing valentines, but like a lady firefly, they had a secret call to die. A final touch, unfinished. The last step, a trap. Down he falls, his eyes still holding mine, until they see another world. I saw them change. First a question, then an answer, finally an end. And love itself passing to whatever it was before it began. And you know that is, and so that's Kaya's poem, and that was the big secret poem locked in the box because Chase fell through a trap door. And you also find out that there was also the shell necklace with the poem.
that was the caveat. That was the icing on the cake.
There was also the shell necklace with the poem that was missing from the murder that Chase wore.
Remember they never found the shell necklace?
That was in the trial. He also.
I'd love to read that last
have to
chapter.
read it
You gotta
again.
bring that book home again?
Yeah,
Oh, see, because I brought my copy back today.
Yeah, we'll have to get it for you.
We'll
or
get
give
it
you
for
this
you,
one.
Donnie.
But you find out that and so what he
Yeah,
does.
but he deserved it. He was a nasty person.
And the book is worth the read because earlier in the book, there's this one observation where she is watching, I believe it's grasshoppers dance, and all of a sudden, the lady grasshopper eats the male grasshopper's head and kills him, and then goes on. And she observes that, and then you find out that she repeated that natural habit and killed the guy who was all flaunty, because that's what she said is in nature, it's always the weakest animals, the weakest males that have to flaunt the most, that have this big dance and have to be so loud. And it's always the ones who are reserved and collected. Those are the alpha males. They talk about the definition of a man. And I believe it's Kaya's mom who defines the definition of a man. And I don't have the exact definition here. Do you want to maybe kick that off? Because what I'm curious is as to what our definitions of being a quote unquote man is. And by the way, maybe that doesn't even necessarily mean a man. Really quickly, before we go to the definition of a man, Ari, Mom, did you know that Kaya was the one who murdered Chase? I had no idea. I was caught off guard.
Throughout the book?
Yeah.
No.
You had
I was
no
thinking
idea.
it was him. I thought he did it because he loved her, so he killed him. That's
You
what
thought
I
it
was
was
thinking
Tate.
the whole
I
time.
wondered.
Yeah.
I thought it might be her, but I thought it could be him defending her because he
of what
defended
he
her.
did to her.
That's why I
The
thought
way
he was
he
going to
treated
connect that and then they'd fall in love. That's what I
Right.
thought.
Because
So
it
did
was
I.
his hat, and they were trying to make it look like it was her, but it was
Right.
really
And
his
they
hat.
tease that. There's one point
They
where,
do
where
with
she
the
sees
hat.
Tate get pulled away by the ambulance and
But
the
his
police
dad
to
died,
arrest
They
him.
right?
Really,
never
her
found
dad
out.
passed
They
away.
never said who.
Yeah.
But like he deserved it.
And-
he was an abusive person, I think.
Yeah, he did. He did. He
was
abused her.
abusive, but because he had privileges, this is what he turned out to be. Because he was brilliant, he was a big football star.
Do you have the definition?
Sure. A real man is one who cries without shame, read poetry with his heart, feels opera in his soul, and does what necessary to defend a woman.
What do we think?
Someone who's in touch with their emotional
And that's
intelligence.
not afraid to show a tear running down their cheek or anything.
Someone who has emotional intelligence, I think, is very important. Somebody who loves him. I think so. It's so important for everyone, whether you're a man or a woman. You have to love yourself first, because if you don't love yourself, there's no way you can love someone else. You just can't, because you will continually question the motives of the other person because you have so much going on that's unsettled. If you love yourself and have a strong self-worth and self-confidence and self-esteem, then you are here from God to just spread love in the world. And I think that is to me, it's so obvious. It's such a basic thing, but so many people don't have that.
No, because their parents never had it. So how can they pass it on down to their children when they never had it?
Ari, and I agree with everything you said, by the way. Ari, what's your definition of a man? Any additions, any subtractions?
No, I feel like they say it very well. I feel like it should be common knowledge, but like with the men I guess I've seen in my life, a lot of the time, this isn't normal for a man to be like, but for me, this is like every person should be like this. I like this, like the way you should feel deeply. But a lot of real men think the opposite, which I think is so odd. I don't know how this is not more well known.
I think it's because old school, when I say old school, like back in the day, I'm 50.
Not too much old school. A lot of them are still that way today.
But
it stems from tradition.
It stems from tradition. So I'm 50, so the way I was raised, but a lot of men that I see older than me, around my age or older, you're raised to not cry and to be strong. And to me, someone who's strong is someone who's not afraid to cry, someone who's in touch with their emotions. And all the while, to me, the most respectful thing for a man or woman should be being able to control your emotions in a calm, loving, peaceful way.
And that's not always possible.
It's not always possible, even for the
Sometimes
most.
you want to take the closest thing and whack them.
Yeah.
But we were talking about like a true definition of a man. I'm saying a man or woman.
Oh, man, no, because they're so much stronger.
I don't agree with that. They're not so much stronger.
Let's say, as a man, I think the definition of a man, one, I don't even like that question today, because I do say back in the day, men traditionally were bigger. And the reason I think there is this, like, men weren't like that is because maybe it did fit them well. Maybe they did need to hide emotion. If I'm thinking 100 years ago,
when they were hunters
if you were hunting and things like that,
you had to be. You
that
weren't
makes
crying
sense.
as you're killing your.
Today, I don't like the question, what's the definition of a man? Because to me, now we're all on an equal playing field. We don't need to use this physical brute force.
I agree.
And so because of that, and I think we're trying to very quickly pivot to where now it should really, the question be, what is the definition of a leader? Maybe is a better word. I think that I would hold all women and men to the same standard.
I agree.
I don't know if I have a definition, but I think to me it comes down to being able to put others before yourself, and or being able to love everyone equally and expressing that love and treating others as you want to be treated. Is that biblical? That's one of the oldest rules.
That's the golden rule.
That's the golden rule. So it's nothing new, really.
My dad had two brothers, Uncle David and Uncle Damas, and my dad. Okay.
Do you have to
Uncle
go?
David-
Hold on one second.
Because I know this is going to go on.
It's going to go on for,
I have to go.
Okay.
We're going to let Ari go. We're going to take a quick break. But can you hold that thought, Nani?
Oh, sure.
All right.
Yes, I get a go before you go.
Thank you, Ari,
Yes.
so much for joining the very first book club.
Thank you for having me.
We love you, Ari.
We love you. I love you.